The Prime Minister Abe's press meeting is about to start. Today, we have to avoid 3 C's. We have kept some space among reporters. Whenever you have questions, you say something, then you can take off your masks based on judgment. First, there will be some remarks given by Prime Minister Abe. Then after that, we take questions from the floor. Mr. Prime Minister, the floor is yours. The summer heat is going on. To the people in Japan, we'd like to appreciate their countermeasures, their support to the people of COVID-19, the summer heat measures. We appreciate what they have done. From the government, there have been requests from the local government, central government. We'd like to appreciate what they have done for us. On COVID-19 countermeasures, since January this year, we have been fighting against invisible enemy. We try to minimize infection as much as possible. We try to avoid the severe symptoms of the people, to protect the life of people from time to time based on expertise. The government has done its level best. That's what I think. But quite regrettably, many people have been infected, and some of them died. I'd like to express my cordial condolences and for those victims. At this moment, doctors, nurses are trying very hard to treat the diseases of the people. I'd like to appreciate what they are doing right now. Today, then from summer to autumn, then fall and winter, we made decisions on government countermeasures against COVID-19. Many facts have come to light during the past 6 months. By taking out countermeasures to avoid 3 C's, strike a balance between the preventive measures and social economic activities is possible. We have seen advancement of the treatment drugs such as remdesivir. The fatality rate of the people under 40 years old is 0.1%. Half of the people who died are in their 80s and over. There are high risks of severe symptoms for elderly people and people suffering chronic diseases. We try to save a life of the people. The most important key for the government is how we can deal with the countermeasures for those people. Winter is coming. Then on top of COVID-19, the seasonal flu may rise. We may have more people with fevers. We have to reduce the burden on medical systems. Then we're going to have a focus on the people who have high risks of infection. We have to change the way we take countermeasures. We have to enhance testing facilities. By winter, we'd like to make it possible that 200,000 tests can be done for both seasonal flu and COVID-19. 200,000 tests. Elderly facilities, hospitals with the high risks of infections, based on infections, we ask the staff members of facilities to take a PCR test on a regular basis so that we can prevent mass infection on people with chronic diseases and the elderly people. When it comes to medical systems, the focus shall be placed on the people with higher risks for COVID-19 infection. On COVID-19, based on SARS, then TB, and MERS, those diseases are classified as the Category 2 in the Infectious Disease Act. The COVID-19 was on the par with those diseases based on the changes in cabinet orders. We have a review on the status of the disease. People with no symptoms, people with mild symptoms will be asked to recuperate at hotels and their homes so that we can reduce the burden on medical systems and doctors, hospitals. Some hospitals, the university hospitals, have accepted the COVID-19 patients. They are suffering in the reduction of their incomes. They are finding themselves in a bind in terms of the business. We like to put out all the stops to give a helping hand to those institutions. Even though the seasonal flu happens, we'd like to have a system to treat the disease and COVID-19. We have contingency budgets. Those budgets will be executed immediately. Together with COVID-19 countermeasures, we shall never have a vacancy in the very strict security environment surrounding Japan. We have to deal with that. North Korea has enhanced its capacity to launch ballistic missiles. In response to that, does it suffice? We can protect the life of people in Japan and by having the intercepting capabilities. 2 days ago, we had NSC meeting. Then we discussed on the new policy on the missile, the defense systems. That will be discussed in the ruling parties to make it a reality. Those are the two messages I'd like to report to the public in Japan. Now let me talk about my own health.
13 years ago, my chronic disease, ulcerative colitis, emerged. In 1 year, abruptly, I needed to step down as a prime minister. Back then, I caused the massive troubles to the public. And then we had a new drug, and I was ready, I was healthy. With the support of the public, once again, I decided to take on the significant responsibility as a prime minister. During 8 years, I controlled my chronic disease without any issues. I kept on focusing on my job as a prime minister on a daily basis. I put all out effort. However, this year, in June, I had a regular checkup. There was a sign of the disease. That was what my doctor said. And I have been using my drugs, and I put all out effort for my job as a prime minister. And mid last month, there was some condition in my health condition, and I was short of my healthiness, and in a ulcerative colitis, resurgence was emerged. Going forward, on top of the drug I'm taking, I will be taking the new drug. Earlier this week, in a checkup, there was an efficacy of the drug. It was confirmed. However, I need to have the drug administration, so I cannot lose focus on my treatment. What is most important in the politics is to deliver on the results. Since inauguration of the administration for the 7 years and 8 months, in order to generate the outcomes, I put out all the stops for my job as a prime minister. I needed to fight against the disease and be treated, and I was not really in a perfect state in terms of the health condition. And still, I have to make political decisions, the important ones. I cannot make any mistake in terms of the important decision making. The support of the public is I have to respond to. So I'm not ready to respond to the mandate by the public, and I made a judgment I should not continue my job as a prime minister. I decided to step down as a prime minister. The most significant challenge for us is the countermeasures against the coronavirus. We have to avoid any obstacles when it comes to fight against the coronavirus. For the past a month, that was the only focus I had. I really struggle to make decision. I see the downward trend in infection after July, and also toward the winter, the necessary measures have been put together. Therefore, under the new leadership, the challenges should be addressed, and this is the only timing where the leadership change should be happening. For the past 7 years and 8 months, we have addressed a variety of challenges. There are a lot of the challenges we haven't completed. At the same time, there are some achievements and there are some milestones that we hit in order to respond to the mandate. All the achievements are thanks to the public and people of Japan. I really want to extend my appreciation to the people of Japan. Despite of the support, even though I have 1 year to go in my tenure, and with other challenges that have not been addressed yet, and amid the coronavirus outbreak, I decided to step down as the Prime Minister. I would like to send my apologies to the people of Japan.
I wasn't able to solve abduction issues involving Japanese nationals. It is indeed a source of regret. The peace treaty with Russia, constitutional amendment. I'm going to leave my status without achieving all of those ambitions and targets. It is indeed a regrettable thing for us, but it is a commitment made by the LDP to the people in Japan. Under the new leadership of the party, we're going to work out the new policies. We're going to have a new engine for growth and for momentum. Then those measures will be executed. Next Prime Minister, before he or she is appointed, the onus will be on me. I will take my responsibility as the Prime Minister of Japan. I go through treatment, then I'd like to regain my health again, so that I'd like to stand behind a new administration as a politician. To the people in Japan, I'd like to appreciate your support for about 8 years. Thank you very much indeed. Then we'd like to take questions from reporters. First, based on practice, we take questions from 2 coordinators, and if your name is announced, then please go to the mic. Then please state your affiliation and name, then ask your question.
Now you can ask a question. Nihon TV, Sugawara, thank you. So you decided to step down as the Prime Minister. As you said, the continuous administration of the drug will continue. Maybe you could have considered the option to serve as a Prime Minister and be treated. So I believe your health condition is very severe. Are there any necessity for you to go to the hospital continuously? So when did you make a decision to resign? And in the first administration, you needed to quit, and this is the second time for you to do that. There may be some criticism that you gave up in halfway through. How would you respond to that? Political vacuum cannot happen. How the successor can be decided? So there will be official voting. Do you think the official process should be happening, or because this is the immediate process, do you think there should be joint plenary meeting of party members? Do you have any particular person in mind that should succeed your job? You asked about the treatment of my disease, and on top of the the drug with the IV, the treatment will continue. So there was a second administration, there was a health checkup, and we started to see the efficacy of the treatment. Yes, I did consider the possibility of continuing the treatment as serving as Prime Minister after June. There will be important personnel decisions to be made in September, and the diet session will be starting. There was no guarantee that my health condition would continue to be better. So that after the completion of the administration of the drug, the treatment could be over, but there's no guarantee. Amid the coronavirus outbreak, we shall not generate any political vacuum. That is why I had no choice but to resign at this particular timing. Last week and this week, I went to the hospital to receive the checkup. So that was the decision I made after the health checkup this week. It was on Monday. Yes, this is still in the middle of the tenure. I have to take those criticism that may arise. But as I said in the beginning, in the autumn and the winter, there will be an influenza season. We put together the countermeasures for that, and those packages were put together today, and they should be implemented. Now we have more visibility to do that. And we see the downward trend of the infection. That is why I made a decision at this particular timing, the presidential election for the successor. So thinking about those timeline, this is the only timing to minimize the impact. That is why I made such a decision. As long as I serve as a Prime Minister, I take the responsibility to fight against the coronavirus. Fortunately, so the drug is very effective, so I will continue to do that for the time being. For the next president of the LDP and how next person should be elected, the senior positions will decide that. So I am not in a position to talk about that. I am not the one who should talk about who will be the next person.
Okay, let us have a question from the other coordinator. This is Imai from Yomiuri, and just now, then you said that you have done your level best to show the result. Among your achievements, by myself, and what is the legacy of the administration? Would you please show us your examples? The task to be done, the constitutional amendment, the abduction issues, and peace treaty with Russia. What are the important assignments that you'd like to pass on to your next Prime Minister? You asked a question about the legacy. It is up to the judgment of the people. I think the history will show what the legacies are. When my administration was launched 7 years and 8 months ago, the recovery of Tohoku region was a prerequisite for the recovery of Japan. I said that government is going all in to recover the damages in Tohoku area. On economy, the people who like to work can work. We have to create job opportunities for people in Japan. That's quite high on agenda for my administration. Japan was haunted by deflation for 20 years. We have 3 arrows. We created jobs for more than 4 million people. Based on the fruits of the growth, and we provided free the high school education, the nursery school education, the work style reform. Then all the people in Japan can work actively. I think we have made a step forward to achieve those achievements. For national security, on the collective self-defense, we set the peace and security legislation. We have enhanced a system to support with each other. The U.S. president went to Hiroshima, then we had achievement. The alliance between Japan and the United States is the basis of our diplomacy, to have a panoramic view of the world in our diplomacy. There are many important matters: EPA, the TPP, Japan-US trade negotiations. Japan took the initiative to create an economic bloc with freedom, and which is fair. Then that's what I think. Whenever a national election was held, people gave his support to my government. My special thanks go to the people in Japan. As you said, abduction issue, the peace treaty between Japan and Russia, constitutional amendment, all of those issues carry greatest importance for the government in Japan. Quite regrettably, it is indeed regrettable that those assignments are yet to be completed, but it is a commitment given by the LGP and the government to the people in Japan. So therefore, after the next strong leadership system is established, I think then my successors will try very hard to deal with those matters.
Now we take other questions. Please raise your hand when you want to ask questions. When you are called, please come up to the microphone, state your affiliation and the name, and ask questions. I think many people want to ask questions. Please ask only one question per person. Hoshino-san, please. Hoshino from Asahi newspaper. Thank you. What is your expectation for the next administration? And there are the number of people who could be the successors, Mr. Suga, Mr. Ishiba, and Mr. Kishida. What is your personal opinions about those people? So I will be stepping down, so I should not make a whole lot request for the next administration. The successor, the Prime Minister, I believe, will be making utmost effort for the era we have to live with Corona and after Corona. We have laid out our visions. Those visions should be shared, and we expect the next person to achieve the results as we dealing with the new normals or new lifestyles. Japan should be a society where people are forward-looking. I don't really mention the specific names, but those people are promising policymakers. In cabinet in LDP, I have worked with those people. So as we work together around the policies, so I think the right person will be chosen.
Okay, can we take a next question, Mr. Yoshimura, please? This is Yoshiura from Kyoto. Can I ask a question about diplomacy? Just now, you mentioned the abduction issue done by North Korea, Japan, Russia, the peace treaty negotiations. You said it is a source of regret that those matters were not achieved, including your first administration, 8 years, 8 months, when you were power. There is something you couldn't achieve. Based on your methods or practice they have done, are there any lessons that you can learn from what you have done? Do you have any expectation? Do you have any wishes on the next government or next prime minister? You didn't use a prompter in today's press meeting, then would you please let me know why you didn't use that device? Sorry, then which is your most important question? Okay, prompter is being used by various leaders of various nations in the world. But today, the script was made just before my press meeting, so I had thought about what I should say. That's why I didn't use a prompter. Was there any alternative to solve the abduction issue? This is your question. I have worked very hard on that matter. It is not an easy task. That's why it remains to be solved. Various possibilities and various approaches have been considered, have been taken by myself. That's what I think. But for example, in the past, there's one thing claimed only by Japan, but this was widely internationally recognized in the world as an issue. The US president had a meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. One-on-one meeting was held between the two leaders, and the matter was mentioned. That Xi Jinping made some mention of this issue. President Moon Jae-in referred to this issue. This is something we didn't see in the past, but we are yet to show a result. But I went all in to solve that matter. There are family members of those people in North Korea. They didn't see any tangible result. Then one by one, the family members have died one after another. It is indeed a source of regret for me. I always wondered whether or not there are other alternatives for us to take. Due to a diplomatic nature, I cannot disclose what the Japanese government has done to solve that issue due to the nature of that matter. But we have played all the possible cards to solve that matter. That's what I think. Thank you.
Shimizu-san, please. Mr. Shimizu, please. Shimizu from Tokyo newspaper. On a consecutive and a total days, you became the longest serving prime minister. I think there are a lot of achievements, but history will decide what was the legacy of the administration. There are speculations by the bureaucrats and falsification of the public documents. There were some negative achievements. And the finance bureau person committed suicide, and family members wants to bring the administration to account. So the public document management that could be used for the judgment of the history, and including that, do you think you held yourself accountable for those incidents? When it comes to management of the public document under this administration, the rules, the new rules will be observed. In a diet session, we spent a lot of time to discuss that, and I also answered a lot of questions. Whether or not it was sufficient, it will be decided by the people of Japan.
Okay, can we take a next question? Shigeta from Nikkei. Prime Minister Abe, you are the president of LDP, but you are the de facto leader of the Seiwakai Association group of LDP. In the LDP presidential election, I believe that you can exercise your crowd to an extent. Then how are you going to work to the election? Are you going to put your ballot and cast a ballot to the candidate, or are you going to just wait and see as the leaving prime minister? Then the succession of your policy is a requirement for your support. Okay, you ask that question, then my Hosoda group of Seiwa Group Association, then Mr. Hosoda is the leader. Under the Hosoda, Mr. Hosoda, as a political group, there might be a discussion within the group, I think, but I'm going to resign as the president of the LDP to the next president whether or not I have no intention of exercising my crowd at the next LDP presidential election, and I think I shouldn't do that. For constitutional amendment, there are 4 items. There are 4 items in the draft constitutional amendment. It was a decision made by the LDP. Whoever becomes the president of the LDP, it is a commitment made by the LDP. So I'm sure that he or she will work on the constitutional amendment as a commitment of the LDP to the people in Japan.
Yoshino from TV Asahi. Thank you. So you are stepping down in the middle of the tenure. I believe your health condition is severe. How are you going to involve with the politics going forward? You said you will be involved as a policy maker, but you will be former prime minister. That could be something you could do. The diplomacy with Russia and China. Are there any willingness? Are you willing to be involved in those diplomacy? What about the next, the lower house election? So how are you going to be engaged, and what are you going to do with those, the lower house election? You asked about what I'm going to do in the future. I try to recover my health condition as a policy maker. I want to continue my job. I would like to make utmost effort so that the policies will be implemented. For the next administration, needless to say, as one policy maker, I want to support the next administration. What exactly I'm going to do? Well, so you're asking about what will be happening. I want to utilize my experience. If there's anything I can do, I want to do that. The next lower house election, this is the decision that will be made by the voters. As one policymaker, I want to do what I can do.
Sugimoto, please. This is Sugimoto from Sankei. Prime Minister Abe, you took the question many times. You didn't mention the candidate for the next U.S. president. You became the longest-serving Prime Minister of Japan. Then I think I'm sure you thought about how a Prime Minister should be. What are the requirements for the Prime Minister of Japan than LDP president in your point of view? I said my statements many times in the past about the point you have mentioned, to have a crystal clear vision, sense of responsibility and passion. He or she has to have those requirements. We have seen the names of some candidates. I think those candidates may have those requirements. I may not have all of them. That's a separate issue. A Prime Minister alone cannot fulfill his or her responsibility. I have been supported by many staff members of the party, the diet members. It is on the support from them that I am able to come where I am today. The partnership or working team is quite important for next Prime Minister, next LDP President.
Goto from TBS. Let me ask a question. This year, the administration has been focusing on coronavirus, and we have to against something we don't know. I think the policies were not very timely. In a diet session, you talked about PCR testing, and there was some impasse. The masks distributed by the government, and they were not distributed in a smooth manner. From those perspectives, so what do you think was the achievement of the administration, and what lessons have you learned from the administration? We have to fight against the COVID-19. It happened in Wuhan, China. Japanese nationals in Wuhan. We really saved them so that they came back to Japan. There was a Diamond Princess infection. We all faced these challenges for the first time. We did not have any experience, so we needed to capitalize on our knowledge or judgment. We do think that we made all-out effort. There were criticism about the distribution of the masks. By starting to distributing the masks, supply and demand relationship was improved, and we see more masks supplied to the market. And the price of the masks that are sold on the internet has been improved. However, there was the criticism, and I do think that I have to take it seriously. When we compare what we did with other countries, even though we have people who passed away, number of deaths and number of people with severe symptoms are less than those of other countries. And there is a huge impact on the economy with a series of economic policies compared to other advanced nations. I think we have been controlling the impact on the economy, even though, having said that, there may not be efficient or sufficient. There are lessons we should be learning from that.
Okay, Kashima, Mr. Kashima, please. This is Kashima from Fuji TV. Prime Minister, at first, you mentioned the health problems. Then you listened to the results of medical examinations. You showed us what has happened. You went to hospital in June, the recurrence of disease. Then you had problems in the midst of the previous month. Before you make a decision to resign on weekends, then you were on duty without having breaks. You spend a lot of time talking about your policy, but many people who saw you nowadays ask you to take rest because you are tired. But Prime Minister, they told me that Prime Minister hesitated to take a break. In hindsight, before you make a decision, do you think that you should have taken the breaks, or you should have tried to keep you less busy? Anything coming up in your mind? Keeping on top of my health is one of the responsibilities for a Prime Minister. I wasn't successful in managing my health. That's a lesson I have learned. Japan is fighting against an invisible enemy, COVID-19. And we have to go all out in fulfilling my responsibility. That's what I think. But I'm a Prime Minister of Japan. I really think that then I have to keep abreast of my health, and that's my strong feeling indeed.
This is Sato from Hokkaido newspaper. Let me ask about constitutional amendment. For amendment of the constitution, even though you became the longest serving Prime Minister, you couldn't amend the constitution. So maybe time was not ripe. What would you think about that? Do you think the constitution can be amended in the future? You asked about the amendment of the constitution. Within the party, there are 4 items that we narrowed down. We have the broader view of the constitutional amendment. We made decisions within the LDP. Unfortunately, among the public, the opinions are not really ready to discuss that. We cannot move forward without the public being ready. That is what we have been feeling. Among the Diet members, there should be candid discussions. Otherwise, we cannot expect the Japanese people to start the discussions. So as a Diet member, the responsibility should be met. So that's what I will be doing as a Diet member.
This is Ishigaki from Gigi. In your first government, Prime Minister, you took a blame then when you resigned your as Prime Minister for the first time. But I think you had a regret in what has happened. Do you believe that in this second resignation, then do you think that you can step down and then avoiding the blame from the public? That you have given up your responsibility? I know that there are divided opinions about what I've announced because I'm going to retire in the midst of my term. But this time, the government has come up with a package of countermeasures against COVID-19 so that there'll be no vacancy of a queue in countermeasures. The COVID-19 infections are waning right now. Then from the autumn to the winter, the seasonal flu is likely to happen, but we have a set of countermeasures against the flu as well. The last time, then I reshuffled the cabinet, then we summoned the Diet, then I resigned, and after I made our inauguration, my speech in the Diet. But I had to make a judgment before that session begins, and this time. I had anxiety about that. I wondered whether I should resign or not at this juncture. I had a feeling that I can serve as Prime Minister more, but I made a judgment that I shouldn't make any mistake as the Prime Minister of Japan.
Kunisada from Kyoto newspaper. Let me ask about the question from the local perspective. Regional revitalization and avoiding the concentration in Tokyo, that has been your focus from the perspective from the local areas. Local areas had a high expectation. The cultural agency transfer to Kyoto was decided. However, we haven't seen the significant, I would say, paradigm shift. So how do you see your achievement regarding the regional revitalization? As you said, we haven't achieved the paradigm shift. We are not there yet. There was a trend, the population was concentrated in Tokyo. For economic recovery under this administration, yes, the population inflow is increasing. However, the pace of the increase is slowing down, and people going to local areas from Tokyo. There are more people who want to do that. Those people who are 60 years old or older wanted to do that. After they retired, when they live based on their pension, they want to move out from the Tokyo. However, now the working population want to move out from Tokyo to regional areas. It means that more people think local areas are promising in terms of the paradigm shift. Well, we have to avoid 3Cs. Among the situation, more people are working from home, working remotely. So I think more people are realizing the attractiveness of the local areas. And young people, people in 20s, want to work in local areas. Those desire is growing based on some research across Japan. What would be the best shape for the nation? This coronavirus could change that dramatically. After COVID-19 era, we have to be forward-looking. We have started the discussion in a council for investment in the future. We want to really utilize those shifts that we are observing.
Mr. Shitakubo, please. This is Shitakubo from Chugoku Shimbun. I thank you for your long-term service to Japan. I was asked, I have a question. You visited, you mentioned President Obama's visit to the Hiroshima legacy. This year is the 75th anniversary of the end of the war. Then the people in Japan appreciate the importance of peace. Then you have seen the victims of the nuclear bombing or hibakusha. You have listened to what the family members had to say. Then what's your impression on this? In your term, then you divided the people's opinions, such as the legislation for peace and security. Please let me know how you have faced up to the issues of peace. For next administration, the abandonment of nuclear weapons, then what is your responsibility to your next government when it comes to the nuclear weapons, the abandonment, the elimination of the nuclear weapons is my strong idea, and it is consistent, the policy of the Japanese government. I believe that mission will be passed on to the next government. You mentioned the issues of peace. Quite regrettably, in various regions of the world, the wars and battles are taking place involving a lot of people, including children, somewhere in the world. We have to stamp out those facts and incidents. The world must get together to create peace, and that is what we have to do. We have to do our utmost to maintain peace in the world at the same time. But simultaneously, close to Japan, some countries are involved in nuclear development. North Korea is developing ballistic missiles that can reach Japan. We really have to protect Japan from those nations. It is for that purpose the alliance between Japan and the US exists. By beefing up the alliance between the two nations, then countries will not be willing to attack Japan. That serve as a deterrence to discourage other nations to attack Japan. Deterrence is not to start a war, but that is to prevent a war. On the abolishment of the nuclear weapons, Japan has been serving as a bridge between nuclear powers and non-nuclear powers. Japan is the only nation that suffers nuclear attack. Then we have to try very hard to eliminate all the nuclear weapons in the world.
Oita from Mainichi newspaper. You said this Monday you went through the health checkup and then you decided to step down as the Prime Minister. And so from Monday to Friday, specifically, when did you make a decision? As you made one, did you consult with anyone about this matter? On Monday, I made a decision. We will be entering autumn and the winter, and we have to have countermeasures against the COVID-19. We have to put together the policy to fight against the virus, and we have to have more visibility. And that turned out to be today. You asked, I talked to anyone. I made my own decision without consulting with anyone.
So we have questions from the reporters assigned to the Prime Minister's office. I'd like to take questions from other reporters. This is Shoko Egawa. I'm a freelancer. The database collecting information of COVID-19, the types of professions and the data of infection, that information was not collected in the system. I believe the data is quite important to take countermeasures. This is not the only issue. The 100,000 yen cash handouts. The applications were accepted online, but the local government employees did some manual works to deal with applications. Under the COVID-19, it became clear that Japan is very behind other nations in terms of information technology. In 2013, Abe administration made a new IT strategy. By 2020, the establishment, the IT utilization society, the best in the world, was a target. Then the Prime Minister Abe made a declaration that Japan shouldn't follow other nations. It's obvious that Japan is following other nations in terms of information technology. I believe that you are quite discontent with what is the case. But what is the reason for Japan is lagging behind other nations in IT? Your successor? Do you have any points to? Do you have any expectations? Do you have any message to successor in that area? Ms. Egawa has pointed out just now Japan's situation over information technology is not without its issues and challenges. Those are points where we have to improve. There are lots of different challenges lying ahead of us. For government, the systems are different from ministries to ministries, and local governments have different information systems as well. That's a challenge to be done. We have a clarity on those issues and challenges. Then we'd like to solve all of those issues at one stroke. You asked a question on the protection of personal information. The responses to the protection of personal information are different from municipalities to municipalities. That's another challenge indeed. We really have to, I think we have shared the sense of issues and challenges that we have to go over those matters. I'm going to resign quite shortly, but I believe the next leader will strive on those matters. But as long as I'm Prime Minister of Japan, then I will continue to work on those issues.
Takenaka from Reuters. Let me ask about the next president. You let the party senior positions to make a decision. Let me ask a question still. There should be no vacuum in the political world, and I don't think there is the specific timeline, but you have some remaining period. So what is the broader timeline about the decision for the successor? Up until we know the next president of LDP, how long it will take? Executive office of LDP is considering the point. And in terms of my health condition, I'm confident up until the point, for sure. Maybe not for. It does not take a long time. I think we have enough time for the political discussions. I refrain from commenting about details.
じゃあ数問に
We have only questions to be asked. Thank you. This is Jimbo from the video. There was a question that I'd like to ask you while you are Prime Minister of Japan. Let me ask you a question. The Abe administration, compared with governments in the past, have complete measures for the media. I think that's what I think. For example, to specific media, you were interviewed by specific media without going around various media companies, and you collect a list of questions. Then you allow the reporters presenting questions to ask you questions at a press meeting. I don't think that's a bad thing, but is it your instruction? And working level, the agreements, then the practice was a case before without your knowledge. Let's suppose that you had a knowledge. You had no knowledge, but do you have questions and answers in front of you, even though this was a place and for reporters to ask you questions? Do you think that it's kind of strange? But in the relationship between the media and the public, and what's your view on this? Abe administration took questions from coordinating reporters. It's not a practice for Abe administration. I believe that the government in the past did the same practice. I don't think it's something specific to Abe administration. Please listen to what Prime Minister Abe has to say. For questions from coordinators or coordinating press companies, it's a practice for the government to take questions from coordinators ahead of others. That was the case for the government in the past. Statements given by Prime Minister should be accurate. Whatever the questions are asked, then we have responses based on assumption that some questions will be asked. Today, I'm listening to your questions. Those are not the questions presented to Prime Minister's office before this press meeting. How I selected the media interviewing me, then I think the judgment from time to time in the government, it's up to a judgment of each person whether the practice is good or not.
結ばせてもらいます。
Kawaguchi from Nishi Nippon newspaper, you became the longest serving prime minister. You made a lot of achievements. However, you had an issue with the Moritomo Kake and a cherry blossom viewing party. You took a lot of criticism from the public when it comes to countermeasures against the coronavirus. I believe you felt the criticism by the people of Japan. So some people say you made administration your personal item. Do you think people misunderstood that? What is your personal opinion about that? In hindsight, do you think you could have something differently? So no one should make administration as a personal item. I haven't done that. Let me make myself clear. I made all-out effort for the nation and the people of Japan. However, there has been a criticism, and we gave an explanation. And there are some lessons we should be learning about how we gave explanation. If it was misunderstood, we have to learn from that. But I never made administration the personal item of mine.
So let me take a final question. This is Okutsu from Hochi. Can I ask a question then about the Tokyo Olympic and Paralympic Games? After COVID-19 became rampant in Japan, you showed your strong intention to have those events, but you're going to resign this time. I wonder if your resignation has impact on the event. And if the Olympic Games and Paralympic Games are held next year, then, but you cannot have those events as Prime Minister of Japan, then what's your feeling on this? We have to create an environment where all the athletes in the world can compete in their best conditions, and we have to provide and safe and secure the games to the audience. We are working in tandem with the IOC and the Tokyo government. A roadmap was decided the other day on the Olympic Games. That based on roadmap, then we're going to make arrangements to fulfill as the responsibility of the Olympic host nation. That's what I think. Then of course my successor will act likewise. For us to make it happen, there are many things that we have to do, I believe.
So this concludes today's press conference. Thank you for your support and understanding. Thank you.